To give you a quick introduction, my name is Pawel Jędrzejewski. I founded the Sylius project. I set up the GitHub organization in 2011. And this year we also transformed into a commercial company that provides consulting, training services, and also does custom development. We also have plans to expand the services and products, but basically we are open source at the core company. I'm also co-organizing PHP meetups in my local city, so not exactly a hackathon idea, more like a meetup with a couple of talks in the evening. But it's very interesting events. So, to give you a quick overview of what is Sylius and what we will be hacking on today and tomorrow. It's open source PHP e-commerce framework for tailored solutions. By e-commerce framework, we mean that we try to solve around like 70 to 80% of the most common e-commerce problems. So the features that you find in Sylius, we try to make them suitable for most e-commerce cases, so also B2B, B2C, subscription services. People generally build a lot of different, also marketplaces and so on. Generally people build a lot of different e-commerce applications on top of Sylius. And by framework, we also mean that one of our main focuses is developer productivity and being developer friendly from the very beginning. We are open source, it's MIT license, so I think pretty much the most permissive license aside of public domain. And yeah, we are developed by open source community and also our internal resources. So Sylius development, I believe the first bits of code were written around Symfony 2.0 preview release. It was not even named Sylius back then. It was just a set of bundles that solve common e-commerce problems. So I remember that I started with the product catalog bundle, the cart bundle, of course. I think there was also shipping, but it was just loosely coupled set of libraries that you can use to build e-commerce on top of Symfony. But with some time, more and more people started using, so we decided that, hey, let's turn it into like fully functional platform that you just install and customize instead of combining these components every time to build e-commerce shop. On 13th of September, we released version 1, the first stable release. So it's been a quite long journey, but like I would say the development of the main platform started around 2013, but was completely rewritten. The complete rewrite started at the end of 2015. So I would say what we have right now was in development for around 2 years. According to GitHub ranking, we are top for PHP e-commerce on GitHub. We are top 6 in general, if you take all Ruby solutions and so on. That's obviously like developer interest statistic, not like number of live shops and so on. We are currently working on growing the ecosystem and our commercial success, but still, I think this gives some indication that developers are interested in this kind of solution. Our packages, all packages, components, and the main platform together were downloaded over 4 million times. More than 700 people have worked on translating Sylius to different languages on the Crowdin platform. Our Slack launched in December, has already over 800 members. So it's very active, helpful community. The code itself was built by over 400 contributors, and we had contributors from San Diego and Nepal. So it's really a worldwide effort. That being said, much more people have contributed to Sylius in one way or another, like translations, suggesting features, reporting bugs. So it's not always about code. You can contribute in many different ways, contribute to the documentation, contribute by organizing hackathons and events and promoting Sylius. So there are many ways to get involved. So as you can see, it's not an overnight success, but rather a long hike from 2013, but at the end of 2016 we have released our beta, and now we have released a stable version, so the daily downloads of the platform are growing really fast, and we hope to grow it even more in the coming months and years. So what are the core ideas behind Sylius? First of all, high developer productivity. Second, we believe that the next big thing in e-commerce is not the platform that has more features than Magento. It's generally difficult to have more features than Magento. But we believe that e-commerce is right now, like the medium and large e-commerce that we are targeting is so complex that it's not enough to have just one single monolithic application to solve all the problems. So rather than putting kind of working loyalty program inside of Sylius, we would rather make Sylius easy to integrate with specific loyalty software. Same for newsletter management and so on. So instead of like implementing in Symfony and PHP newsletter automation tools, we rather prefer to integrate with MailChimp, for example. So we try to focus on the core e-commerce problems and provide a platform that later can be integrated with the best in category solutions. We want to make Sylius simple to deploy and host. This is a bit simpler with Symfony. It provides a lot of tools out of the box. We also have a very strong focus on the APIs. We believe that separation of backend and frontend is the future of development also for e-commerce, not only for the SaaS admin panel solutions and so on. We also believe APIs are very cool for integration, so this kind of resonates with the second point. And we have a crazy serious attention to testing. I think it's safe to say that Sylius is one of the most tested open source application that you can find on GitHub, but not only most tested, but also built with test-driven development, specifically with behavior-driven development. So if we have a look at Sylius architecture, on the lowest level we have Sylius components. These are plain PHP libraries that you can use with any framework. It's not specific to Symfony. You could actually use them with Laravel. There are some quite big projects built that way. Examine.com is one example. And they solve very basic e-commerce problems. Like the best example is taxation component, which is responsible for calculating taxes included in price, excluded from price, different tax categories. This is all contained within the taxation component, but it doesn't know completely anything about the product catalog, for example. We have a separate component for product catalog. You can install them with Composer. They're available on Packagist. And yeah, basically you can start coding after calling Composer require. On the second level, we have the bundles. Bundles are just like shortcuts for Symfony developers. So instead of manually integrating taxation component into your Symfony app, you can install the bundle and save some development hours because you already get doctrine mapping, serializer configuration, controllers, and all like framework specific stuff. Basically bundles are the glue between components and Symfony framework. On top of that, we have Symfony Platform, which is, like I said, 70 to 80% most common e-commerce problems solved in a full solution. So the components are, thanks to bundles, are glued into Symfony, and Sylius Platform is a full stack Symfony application. So we use everything from Symfony. It actually started from Symfony Standard Edition. Maybe quick poll, who knows Symfony? Who worked with Symfony before? Okay, so you guys know. Like in Symfony terms, bundle is just a set of files, PHP classes and configurations that basically provide you with a single feature. So we have taxation component and taxation bundle. So with the platform, like I said, 70 to 80% of most common e-commerce problems. So we have product catalog, we have promotions with coupons, taxes, shipping, order placement, the full shop interface, even with some product reviews and so on. So yeah, usually you just take the platform and you can customize it to your use case. Like constructing your own platform from bundles and components is usually the more advanced scenario, and for really custom solutions. If we have a look at the platform itself, this is again a set of bundles actually. We have the core component and core bundle, and that's the place where, for example, the product variation finally learns that it has a tax category, or that it has a price actually. So this is where all components get connected together, like order has a relation to shipments and so on. This is like the main glue between everything, every single decoupled e-commerce concept coming to that in the core. And on top of this core, we built three bundles. The first one is admin, and it provides you with the standard admin interface. I've seen that some of you have been testing it already. The second component is shop, standard B2C shop interface, nothing fancy, cart, checkout, product page, product listing page, contact form, login, my account section, typical B2C shop. And finally, the admin API bundle, which provides RESTful API, works with, we mainly focus on JSON, but it also supports XML, and it's standard CRUD REST API, performing operations from the admin perspective. So this API is more suitable for integrations, because it's like admin creating products or deleting products or placing an order and so on. So you can use this to integrate Sylius with other systems. The cool thing is you can actually disable every single of these. Like if you just need e-commerce engine and you want to have your own interface, mobile app, whatever, you can just disable these two and use the API. Or if you want to have a shop interface, but everything is done by API and exported to ERP, and you don't really use this admin panel, you can just remove the bundle from the kernel, it's gone. Remove the routing, it's gone. So one tip that I always repeat when talking about Sylius architecture: do not take our architecture as an example of something that you would use in your custom Symfony applications. We put a lot of extra effort, extra but needed effort, to make Sylius extensible and customizable for you as developers. So we have a lot of abstraction layers just for the purposes of customization. You can learn a lot from Sylius in terms of Symfony development, best practices, testing, and so on. But the architecture, like the number of the bundles or the coupling between the bundles, usually for your Symfony, for custom Symfony applications, you usually need just the app bundle, and that's most of the time it's more than enough. So, what do we really have for developer productivity? We recently upgraded to PHP 7.1 and we use strict typing. So Sylius looks a bit closer to Java right now because we have strict typing, return types, and so on. So we use all of the latest and greatest PHP features. We generally avoid reinventing the wheel. So we use the libraries that are already well known in the community. We use Symfony, Doctrine, Twig. For Symfony developers, you will really feel like home. We use lib imagine bundle for image processing, Goffrit for the file system abstraction, FOSS server, FOSS REST bundle. This is really, like, we focus on solving the issues of e-commerce and the issues of e-commerce development, not web development in general. So a lot of libraries that you have worked with, even without Symfony, will be familiar for you in Sylius. And that makes the learning curve much easier. It makes it much easier to find developers. Like, you don't need to find a Magento expert or Demandware expert or Shopware expert. It's enough to get as someone who has worked with Symfony before, and I've seen developers productive from day one on their project. Hopefully prove this with this hackathon. So we of course practice clean code, solid, and most importantly, single responsibility principle. I'll be talking about this a lot, but that's one of the most important principles that affects pretty much all other areas of the project. We also have some tools for simple CRUD and grid. By grid, I mean just the admin interface generation components. I can quickly show an example. Like, Let's say we have a custom entity in our project, a book entity, a standard doctrine ORM entity. We can register it as a resource in configuration file, in the main config file of Symfony. We can also generate automatically a CRUD routing for API. And with these two configurations and the entity in place, we can already get a fully working CRUD interface. So we can create books, update books through API, but also through user interface. So after you register such entity as a resource, you get a set of services. The first one is the controller, which provides you with these CRUD operations. Second one is factory, just a simple abstraction to avoid using the new keyword, because that makes testing a bit more difficult, because you can't mock the creation of the object. Finally, the repository, which is like doctrine entity repository on steroids. It has pagination support, basically. Otherwise, it's the typical find one, find by, and find all, and find repository that you know. And finally, manager, and in this case, this is just an alias to the appropriate entity manager, so you can persist and flush the new objects. So then, with this configuration, you can actually do a lot of stuff without touching PHP code. I'm not saying that CRUD is perfect for everything. It's good for typical CRUD operations. It's good for prototyping, for rapid development. But it's not to say that you can't use command bus or CQS or CQRS in a Sylius application. You have generally full freedom, just like with any Symfony app. And also we have the admin interface of Sylius is pretty much generated, but we don't use a typical admin generator like Sonata, which makes, in my opinion, too many assumptions. We focus on basically if you have a interface like this to build, and you have to do it like 10 times because you have 10 custom entities or something like that. We tried to make it to avoid repeating the work all the time, because you very often need filters, you need actions, you need like create action and so on. So in Sylius you can configure that with YML basically. And this is just a part of the configuration which defines the fields, but as you can see, you can have different types of fields like string. In this case, that would be just the code, but you can also have tweak field type to render some nice labels like this and so on. Another cool thing about both resource engine and the grid engine is that we have abstracted the whole data storage. So by default, we provide the doctrine ORM driver, but you can totally implement different drivers like MongoDB, PHP content repository, or Elasticsearch and so on. So you can configure where to actually get the data from to display here. And these controllers, these services are format agnostic. So it doesn't really matter if it's if you want to render an HTML page, or you want to get the product data in JSON or XML, or generate an RSS feed. They will serve whatever format you prefer. So here we see displaying a request to display information about cash on delivery payment method. If we would call, and this action is executed by the exactly same controller that would be used to display it in HTML. So we also focused on making upgrades simple. I must admit that we just released the stable version, so we have a long way to go to finalize the upgrade process. But if you have worked with Sylius before alpha release, which happened October 2016, the upgrades were a nightmare. We were in very intense development, doing a lot of busy breaks, having 2 admin panels at some point. But since alpha, we put really extra effort to make the upgrades easier and easier. It improved during the beta phase even more. And now we are really serious about making upgrades simple for you to perform. And that's possible for various reasons. I think the main reason is the architecture, the clean code, Symfony, and the principles that we adopted. But generally, it should be possible for you to update Sylius with composer update, clearing the cache, running the migrations, and so on. So we are setting a BC break policy right now. We encourage strong testing culture, which makes upgrades easier when you have your application tested on continuous integration. You just upgrade, run the tests. If everything is fine, you do some maybe extra manual testing, and generally upgrades should be done. We also provide built-in tests. So for the parts that you have not customized, like if you didn't customize parts of the admin panel, you can still run Sylius tests from inside of your application. So you kind of get a simple, like we have a lot of tests, but usually you customize a lot in Sylius, so you can't run the original test with these customizations, but you get some automated testing out of the box. When we say it's easy to integrate, we mean especially the single responsibility principle. So if there is tax calculation or if there is resolving the available payment methods for the customer, you can be sure there is only one place where we do it. If you find such duplication of responsibilities, report a bug, because we consider it a bug, but I'm pretty sure there is maybe a couple of left to find, which we missed. So you always have a single point of integration, like when the order is placed, you have state machine callbacks. Also for integrations, you have our REST API, and Sylius being a Symfony application, you can use message queues without extra effort by installing the bundles. So standard integrations can look like this. So we have Sylius and we have a plugin that talks to some API like MailChimp. But remember, we are a standard Symfony application, so you can just drop RabbitMQ bundle and use Message Broker, for example, to integrate two different applications by installing one plugin that will produce or consume messages on Sylius side and on the other side as well. So one example of the single responsibility principle, inside of the code, like we have an interface for resolving payment methods. So that's the only place where you get the payment methods to display on the checkout page or to be able to select through API checkout. So you can have one place to customize, to decorate or override the service that is responsible for that, and you can either provide your own payment methods or call some external API to get them. It's totally up to you. The REST API is pretty complete. You can place orders, create customers, pretty much. I think in some cases, like you cannot place an order in Sylius through the UI of admin panel, but you can do it through API. We still have a couple of endpoints which need to be added, but the most essential ones like customers, products, and orders, this is already implemented. Just keep in mind that this API is giving you, for example, all the data of the product. So a product with all the translations. So it's, like I said, it's more suitable for integrations, data export, than, for example, progressive web apps. And here's an example of state machine configuration. I told you that when you integrate Sylius, you can use callbacks to always have a single point where something is happening. So all the business logic, all the e-commerce logic, even the checkout is built around the state machine concept. State machine concept is really straightforward. You define what kind of states are possible, what kind of transitions we have between them. This one is for product review, so we have accepted, rejected, and new review. And thanks to these transitions, you can hook into every single step of the process and execute some Symfony or Sylius services here. So you can send out an email, you can modify the actual object, or you can pretty much do anything. Just remember that with great power of expression language comes great responsibility. But this gives you ability to, first of all, customize Sylius to make it work the way you want, and integrate it with other applications with ease by hooking into appropriate integration spots. When we talk about progressive apps, so if you would like to build your front-end with React, Polymer, Vue.js, do we have any front-end developers, engineers in the room? Okay, because one of our ideas was to hack a bit on this and get some feedback, like what do you think about the API that we provide? Because we recently released Shop API plugin. So this is not in Sylius core, because it's something totally new, and we want to experiment a bit more with that before it lands in the core. Basically, this plugin gives you kind of REST RPC API for performing the shop operations. So using these endpoints, you can add stuff to cart, you can check out, you can add coupons. It's pretty one-to-one with the shop interface that we provide with tweak rendering, with the standard HTML view. So would be interesting to hear your feedback. We also consider implementing GraphQL before putting in the core, but for now it's it's still in beta, and we want to experiment a bit more. Standard Sylius 1.0 application would be admin interface and customer interface rendered by Symfony on the server side, and experimental approach would be with this shop API plugin providing the API, and this is like React, Angular, or whatever application you prefer. So test-driven development, this is a topic for a whole separate presentation. We hope to record soon some webinars about our testing workflows, and hopefully we can show you a lot of this during the workshop. But basically, Sylius was built with Behat and PHP Spec, which are tools for behavior-driven development. Behavior-driven development is derived from test-driven development. It only focuses on the right things and changes the focus from programming alone to the business side. So we write user stories, which then are automatically tested on the continuous integration. And also when we do unit testing, we actually design our code through tests. We can show you a lot of these tools during the workshop, but we also use PHP Unit, which you are probably familiar with, for API and integration testing. In terms of performance, we are still building the case studies with some impressive numbers. We have quite a lot of new big shops. I think one of the biggest is Conforama, which is like French home furnishment company, the second biggest in Europe. So their Italian branch was launched on Sylius recently. We have Reese, a fashion brand from London, and a couple of other quite big shops running on Sylius, some in production for 2 or more years. But most of the stuff comes from Symfony actually. So the varnish support, this is provided by Symfony. We have FOSS HTTP cache bundle. We also implemented Elasticsearch plugin, which allows you to handle bigger catalogs. PHP 7.1 gives you a nice performance boost, and there are some bundles that allow you to easily cache things in Redis and Memcache. In terms of easy deployment and hosting, I'll be honest with you, we are not experts about hosting distributed Docker applications in the cloud and so on. But so far, Sylius is very easy to host in PaaS platforms like Plattform SH or Google Cloud. It's also quite straightforward to do it on Amazon. We still work on the official Docker support. I think I talked with, I don't know, at least 5 different people in the community who started something with Docker. So we now we will try to do some effort from our side to combine these into a single official Docker configuration. So what's next in our plans? 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. We hope to release the roadmap with some specific features that we want to implement, but we generally target medium and large shops. So the things that we want to implement in future versions is like multi-warehouse, return and refund support, and generally, again, the next batch of common e-commerce problems solved. We also work on the solution partner program, so we want to have more companies that work with Sylius, that provide everyone with nice case studies and develop the community. We are a small company, so we can't really handle all the development. We want to focus on consulting and training and also some new products. So we are working hard on launching the solution partner program. I think it will happen in the coming weeks. Plugins, so getting the development cost on top of Sylius lower. By plugins, we don't mean like click to install plugins you find in WordPress or Shopware. We think it just doesn't make sense for medium, large shops. And so plugins in Sylius are just bundles that provide you with, foundation for development of a specific functionality and save you some development hours. And creating customer success stories, because our showcase has quite nice websites in it, but there is no description of what was the experience of using Sylius and so on. But there has been a lot of good experience, so we will be working on making it easier to sell to the business. So, what's the plan for the hackathon? We have prepared some ideas like webhooks, data export in grids, working on plugins and so on. I will keep this slide on for us to discuss, but we would also like to hear what's interesting for you. So we have an entire team here, and we are able to form groups of couple people. I don't know how many people we have. I would estimate 30, so like 5 groups of 6 people, where every group is led by one of our developers. And we basically hack on a specific topic that is interesting. So if you have some ideas you would like to check or discuss, let us know, and we'll try to form these groups. We also planned short presentations, like 10-15 minutes from our team. Like in the breaks between coding, they can present you with some of ideas or interesting concepts related to Sylius and development, so you can also learn something new. So have fun. I hope you will enjoy this hackathon, and if you have any questions right now, I think we can quickly answer them, and otherwise we should start forming the groups and discussing the hacking. So thank you.